We are a week and a couple of days from the release of the Obi-Wan-Kenobi show, a show a lot of us fans and Star Wars fans alike have been waiting for quite some time. Because of this, there's a ton of press going on, interviews with Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, the cast and crew. There's a ton of stuff going on with articles and whatever else you can think of. And speaking of articles, the point of this video is going to be about the article from Vanity Fair, an interview with Kathleen Kennedy. She's been blowing up over the internet over the past couple of days because of some of the comments she has made about the future of Star Wars. And I gotta be honest with you, she speaks, and sometimes I just feel like saying, shut your damn mouth. I still can't believe Disney looks at her and thinks, oh, this is a good idea to keep her in charge of Star Wars. Now, before I go any further, I do want to remind everybody, I don't hate Kathleen Kennedy. She is well known in the producing world for doing so many different things. She's done sci-fi, comedy, action, adventure. She has been around the block in the film industry, and this is nothing against her talents there. This is just simply the fact that she does not understand the culture of Star Wars and how to bring it into this new generation the right way. Now, I'm going to go through this article. I'm not going to read every single question and answer because there are specific things that don't really need to be read. I will put the article in the description below if you want to read the whole thing for yourself. But there are a couple of things that when I was reading the article, they were just kind of bugging me because of specific things she was saying. And I just, you know what I mean? To start this article, let's read the first sentence. The first sentence already got me. It had me dying when I read it. Kathleen Kennedy's job is to focus on the past, present, and future all at once. Well, I'm not exactly sure how that could be possible. She's made many statements over the years that have led me and other people to believe she doesn't know that Star Wars has a past. She doesn't know about the extended universe. And I'm also led to believe that when it comes to the future of Star Wars, she is just as blind in it as we are. We're kind of just moving through and seeing where it goes. She talks a lot about finding new ways to drive Star Wars in the right direction, bringing people on board who can tell really good, proper stories. I don't even think there's really stock in some of the words she says. She's just saying it to say it, and it's on Vanity Fair, so everyone's gonna see this article. Look, there are people in these positions all around the world, whether they be for content entertainment purposes or other types of industries. There are people just like her who are studio heads, people in management and leadership roles, people who are CEOs, COOs, CFOs, whatever it might be. And yes, at the end of the day, you always want to mask your company and your business in the best light possible. I'm not saying Kathleen Kennedy should go out there and start talking about all the bad decisions they made and start admitting that, yeah, Star Wars kind of sucks right now. But what I am saying is there are people in positions like hers out there, people who won't constantly take a question and just mask that question with a really shady type of truth, or they'll ask a question and you don't fully answer the question, you kind of skirt around the edges. There are some people out there who, when asked a specific thing, will admit like, hey, we made a mistake here, we gotta get better. She never does that in this entire article, and frankly, in her time of leading Star Wars, she has never ever done something like that. She's never admitted to mistakes, clear mistakes. And that's what really bugs me about this woman and why I don't think she is a good fit for Lucasfilm Star Wars. All right, I'm calming down a little bit. It's not going to last long, but let's get to the first question. I guess since you didn't have theaters open for the next 2 years, Was that original hiatus because you knew there was going to be this new focus on developing television content for Disney Plus? She responds with, not necessarily. I really had more to do with recognizing that we were drawing to a close on the saga that George Lucas had created, and that we were moving into the future of storytelling in the Star Wars universe. We all recognized, every single one of us inside of Lucasfilm, that this was a new chapter for the company and that we needed to all work together to create the architecture of where we were going. Yeah, drawing a close on the George Lucas Skywalker saga. Okay. We all know a 10, 11, 12 is going to happen one day. It just is. It's too much of a moneymaker. And even with how many people hated 7, 8, and 9, like me, if you give it enough time, they'll still make money on another trilogy. And I'm sorry, what saga did you close off? The Skywalker saga closed after episode 6. 7, 8, 9 is just very bad fan fiction with studio level cinematography, CGI, and actors. That's really all it is. You didn't conclude George Lucas's story. It has nothing to do with 1 through 6. When you went to talk to Favreau, was it a TV series in mind? She responds, it wasn't an assignment by any means. I went to talk to him because Bob Iger was beginning to have these conversations about creating streaming. I said, hey, I don't know if you would have an interest in coming in and working with us. He said, not only would I have an interest, I have an idea. So he had been thinking about this unbeknownst to me. Consequently, once John wanted to get involved in Star Wars, I had known for a long time that Dave Filoni had always been interested in making a transition from animation to live action. I have known this almost from the moment I came into the company and really encouraged him. I tried to create opportunities for him to come over to London to be on the set of feature films, to talk to our directors, to get a sense of what transition might look like and feel like. There's truth to this. Dave Filoni was eventually moving forward into the live action realm. He'll do both animation, live action. He still has his toes dipped in each field, but he did want to start developing more live action content because that's where a lot of the fandom lies. Whether you're a huge fan of Star Wars, diehard fan, or if you're an average fan. The one line that just really gets me, and I just can't seem to believe it knowing it comes from her mouth, where she says, I have known this almost from the moment I came into the company and really encouraged him. I'm sorry, guys. I don't believe that's genuine, and I don't believe that's the truth. Then again, I'm not in their positions. I don't know the relationship between Filoni and Kathleen Kennedy. I don't really know what goes on behind closed doors. Maybe that was happening. Just the most recent history of Star Wars kind of shows me that that probably is not what was going on, but I don't know, maybe. Now, I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but these next questions are in regard to the child, or Grogu. That seems like a turning point. I assume somebody in your position would look at these two guys debating. One was for and one was against. She responds, not against. Cautious. There must have been a part of you that's like, is this too cute? Are people going to reject it? Walk me through that process and what ultimately convinced you. I internalized a lot of the debate they were having. I think what struck me was it was a bold idea. I'm always attracted to that. You could look back and maybe think that was an expected idea, but it wasn't. Initially, he was just trying to create a character. He, as in Jon Favreau, the Mandalorian is taking care of the child. That's the basic concept. It was the child. What that child looked like is what evolved over time. The bold idea of that maybe it's of the species that Yoda is immediately gives you a context and a potential backstory. That's exciting in Star Wars because all these things need to be connected. That's what I recognized right away when he was talking about it. Yeah, be cautious. That's what you should have always been when you were creating 7, 8, 9, and even other projects that lie within that time frame, your books, other animation pieces. Cautious. Cautious to not destroy a world you have no understanding of, or divide and fractionalize fandoms that have been loving this world for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Caution is definitely a good word for you. She also says she's attracted to bold ideas. Some bold ideas can be really good, but then some bold ideas are really outright stupid. Just so stupid that it actually makes you lose brain cells. That's the type of terrible, bold idea she should have been able to see when Rian Johnson came in for episode 8. Was the book of Boba Fett similar to those previous ideas Lucasfilm explored as feature films? We didn't really get too far down the road on what we were going to do in features with Boba. Yeah, you don't say. As you know, with development, there's a lot of things that get talked about and don't necessarily move forward, or they may move forward and they hit a wall. It's a difficult process. So no, we never got to a point where there was anything that John either used or rejected. You could tell with the Boba Fett show there wasn't much development. I don't even really think they knew where they wanted to take it. Alright, this is where I get a little cheddar cheesed, goat cheesed, feta cheesed, blue cheesed. Another cheese. You've mentioned a couple times that Star Wars is one unified story. That's immense pressure. If Warner Brothers makes a Batman film that doesn't work, they can reboot and do a different Batman film. But I don't think you can really say the Obi-Wan series we made doesn't count. It is immense pressure, but no one was talking about the immense pressure that Star Wars had when Lucasfilm was under the guise of George Lucas. Now we're all of a sudden talking about the immense pressure because we all realize that we've lost trust in the way they tell their stories. We've lost trust in the direction they're going. Yes, I know there are good things about Star Wars right now. Mandalorian, Jedi Fallen Order video game, Obi-Wan could be a godsend for the Star Wars universe and fandom, but the only reason why we're terming this immense pressure for leading the Star Wars world is because it's being led by somebody who still, after all these years, doesn't know what Star Wars is. I would not be surprised if she thought Star Wars was a product of Star Trek. Anyways, she goes on to say, we also can't go do something with Luke Skywalker that isn't Mark Hamill. We're not going to suddenly go try to do that. The beauty of Obi-Wan-Kenobi is Ewan McGregor desperately wanted to do this. He has been so engaged in the entire process, and our excitement and reason for doing this is that the real Obi-Wan wanted to tell this story. We got excited by the idea that Ewan McGregor wanted to come back and Hayden Christensen wanted to come back. Just as fans, everybody inside the company was like, let's see if we can make this work. I bet everyone was excited to get Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen back. I bet that's a great feeling. Anakin Skywalker has always been what Star Wars is about. I bet if she could go back in time and think about his importance when developing 7, 8, and 9, she would feel much more confident about those films. I don't want to put you in an awkward spot, but this was an understanding you've come to that was developed from Solo. I don't want to trash Alden Ehrenreich. I think he did a good job, but the idea that you can really replace Luke Skywalker, was that something you learned from that movie? Or how would you put it? Maybe. I think back and Solo was one of the first ideas that came up when the company was sold. One of the first people I went to was Larry Kasdan. Larry and I have known each other forever. He was so excited to tell that story. We genuinely believed at the time it was a good idea. So yeah, there should be moments along the way when you learn things. That may have certainly been a learning moment. Some people have talked about how well maybe Solo would have been as a TV show. But even doing Solo as a TV show without Harrison Ford as Han Solo, it's the same thinking. Maybe I should have recognized this before. That's probably the dumbest thing she says in the entire article. First of all, I know there's a lot of 50-50. People don't like Solo or people like Solo. I fairly enjoy that movie, and I think Alden did a fantastic job. But the fact that she's literally sitting here talking about how they learned their lesson about taking some of these legacy characters and not using other actors and actresses to portray them as younger versions in different movies or TV shows is stupid. What type of mentality is that when you put it into the perspective of, yeah, you know what? Let's just not get Ewan McGregor to play a younger version of Obi-Wan. Alec Guinness wasn't around at the time. What was George Lucas going to do? do? And even if he was going to do it, do you think they had the technology to digitally de-age Alec to be younger Obi-Wan? Oh yeah, because Han Solo ended up being a flop for the Star Wars world. Yeah, you know what? The problem was casting younger actors to play these very prolific legacy roles. No, your issue was that when you released Solo, you were releasing it after The Last Jedi, which is arguably one of the most controversial films ever created and a very well hated film, and you also release it during the time of Avengers Infinity War. You literally set that movie up for failure. That whole it makes me so angry. That has to be the most annoying and outright stupid response I saw in this article. I love this one. Initially, The Force Awakens, JJ created a mystery around Rey's origin. That's been something fans have been debating for years now. Her response, oh yeah. I love it. You know Rey's origin and storytelling was outright awful. You have nothing else to say but, oh yeah. Yeah. I'd heard that Obi-Wan was possibly one of the resolutions, that Rey could have been a descendant of his. I've heard this idea was carried along for a while when it was put aside partly because Rian Johnson had a different terrible approach. I added the terrible in there just so you know. But also because Lucasfilm didn't want to tie up Obi-Wan for a different story down the line. The bigger issue is talking about Obi-Wan as a Master Jedi and the issue of attachment and selflessness. In order for Obi-Wan to have a child, you are really impacting the rules around the Jedi. What does that mean? If that were explored, and certainly there were a lot of ideas being thrown around, but anything to do with Obi-Wan in that regard was pretty much off the table because it flies in the face of everything George created in that mythology. Now, at first glance, I respect the knowledge she carries about how the Jedi were when George Lucas created them in the timeline of 1 through 6. The Jedi had a very specific code that they could not bear offsprings, and that attachments led to the dark side. Jedi codes have changed so vastly in the entire history of Star Wars, dating thousands and thousands and thousands of years back. Some Jedis preferred emotions. Some Jedis detested emotions. Some Jedis were 50-50. Specific Jedis in specific times with specific councils had their own different laws and rules on what type of emotions are good for Jedis. Now, an idea I always had about Obi-Wan being the descendant of Rey isn't even the fact that Obi-Wan had sex and had a child. Oh my God, he's not supposed to do that. Obi-Wan should never touch a woman in his life. No, I think maybe you could have done it in a way where, think about Anakin, how he's pretty much an embodiment of the Force. And there are many different theories that was Anakin created through the Force by Palpatine. That was revealed in the comic book, and it never ended up being true. There's also a theory that Darth Plagueis created Anakin through the Force. We still don't really know if that's the truth. There's even a theory that Darth Tenebris, the master of Plagueis, created Anakin through the Force. Who really knows? Or maybe if the Force itself knew there needed to be a balance one day, and the Force created Anakin. Now Obi-Wan becomes a Force ghost. Obi-Wan realizes the immense power he now holds, being able to walk through this astral plane of everlasting life while still wielding the ability of the Force. Since there is a canonized book that Obi-Wan does see the future when he gets cut down by Darth Vader and he sees certain events of 7, 8, and 9, I always thought it would be cool if Obi-Wan found a way to manifest somebody in the Force the way Anakin was. So maybe Obi-Wan planted Rey in her mother, almost like a Virgin Mary, if you will. Even that would have been a very interesting idea, and in a way, you could relate her to Obi-Wan at the end of the day. But I guess that was never a thought. And hey, let me know in the comments below if you kind of like that idea. I always like that idea. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyways. But also she says here it was off the table because it flies in the face of everything George created in the mythology. Why does that all of a sudden matter? It clearly didn't matter before. Look, Kat, if you want to just be honest with your mistakes, you should just fucking come out and say it. Last question I'm going to read here, but just to let you all know, she was asked about Rian Johnson's trilogy that he was given a couple years ago, and she basically tells him that he's so busy with Knives Out that they haven't been able to set anything in stone, which more than likely means it's never gonna happen, and I hope to God it never happens. We don't need anything else from Rian Johnson in Star Wars. Now the last question, how important is it to get outside the gravity of the Skywalker Saga, moving beyond the characters we know? How vital is it to open up these new realms? I think it is vital. Just staying within the construct of George's storytelling to keep chipping away at that, I think would be wrong. It's our job to step away now, but still have a connection to the mythology that George created. That won't stop. But we are moving on from the Skywalker Saga. That's what's taking a lot of time, discussion, and thought right now. You butchered the previous three so badly that it probably scared you into moving forward with anything live action in theaters right now. TV shows is a much easier way to captivate a smaller group of audience, which will then captivate this smaller group and this smaller group and this smaller group until the day where you have a majority of people back, where you can then feel confident to release one in theaters. That's what this is about. Streaming service shows for Star Wars was going to happen no matter what, but the reason why there are no more movies right now is because of the lack of confidence and fear of failure. Well, that's it for the article, guys. I'm not reading any more of it. On this channel, I've talked a lot about how Warner Brothers culture is very bad and how Warner Brothers as a company needs to change. The content needs to get better. And I'm really hoping that does happen with Discovery. Things kind of look up for Star Wars and Lucasfilm, but it's still nowhere near perfect. And I honestly think that with her in charge of Lucasfilm, it's always gonna stay in that middle ground. It's always gonna be, well, Star Wars is okay, but it's also not the best. And I just don't know what it's gonna take for her to realize that she's done a lot of bad for Star Wars. Anyways, everyone, that's it for this video. Rant video, if you want to call it that, because that's kind of what it was. I was pretty much ripping and ranting on Kathleen Kennedy, and I won't even be surprised if the day comes where maybe I get a little bit bigger on YouTube and social media and I get blacklisted by Lucasfilm. Would not be surprised at all. They probably will not like me because I'm honest and I speak the truth about the shit they do. It is what it is. I love Star Wars. Blacklist me all you want. I just want your world to look good and to be for the better. I want it to be captivating. I want the future of Star Wars to look like Revenge of the Sith 24/7. I want it to be that exciting. So that's why I'm giving you some tough love. So with that being said, leave in the comments below what you think about this article and some of her answers. What do you think about Kathleen Kennedy as a leader for Lucasfilm? You think it should change, or do you want her to stay in? Let me know your thoughts. But anyways, everyone, that's it for now. And just like every Star Wars video on this channel ends,
the Force will be with you, always.